They had marched for 4 years, fueled by vengeance. They came from burned villages to find the den of the fascist beast. They expected a shining, arrogant capital, an untouchable city. What they found was hell on earth, the long road of vengeance. April 20th, 1945, 5:30 hours, just east of the Berlin city limits. You can smell it before you see it. It's not the familiar battlefield stench of cordite, churned mud, and death, though that's here too. This is something new. It's the smell of a million cold, wet fireplaces. The smell of pulverized plaster, ruptured gas lines, and something indescribably sour, something human, lying underneath acres of damp brick dust. For Sergeant Vasily Petrenko of the 8th Guards Army, it's the end of the line. He hunches his shoulders against the pre-dawn chill, the damp wool of his gymnastiorka shirt sticking to his back. His hand is numb around the wooden stock of his PP-41 submachine gun. Beside him, the massive sloping hull of a T-3000, 485 tankets long 85mm cannon, pointed toward the unseen city centre idols, with a guttural, impatient rumble. The tank is named Rodina, Motherland. Its crew hasn't slept in 2 days. Vasily hasn't really slept in 4 years. He's been walking here from the ashes of Smolensk. His home is a memory. His family, a black and white photograph he keeps wrapped in oilcloth, its creases worn white. For 1,418 days, the German was the Fritz, the Gans, the fascist invader who burned his village, hanged his neighbours, and drove his people into the earth. And for 1,418 days, he has been marching toward Berlin. The word itself is a curse, a promise. In his mind, reinforced by every political commissar and every frontline newspaper, Berlin is not just a city. It is the den of the fascist beast. It is the spider's parlour. He knows what it looks like. He's seen the captured newsreels, pristine avenues, towering, arrogant monuments of white stone, the massive Olympic stadium where Hitler had mocked the world. He imagines goose-stepping soldiers on clean pavement, fat women in furs, walking pampered dogs, and arrogant party officials with full bellies, utterly untouched by the apocalypse they had unleashed on his home. The propaganda told him so. The logic of war told him so. The enemy homeland, the capital of the Reich, was supposed to be the one place that had been spared. While his Rodina bled and starved, Berlin partied. The thought has been a hot coal in his stomach for 1,000 kilometers. He and his comrades didn't just want to capture Berlin, they wanted to see it. They wanted to stand on its clean streets and show the master race what real war, their war, finally looked like. The artillery barrage intensifies. Marshal Zhukov is feeding his gods of war an endless diet of shells. The sky to the west isn't black, it's a rippling, pulsating orange. The ground shudders, not like an earthquake, but like a giant drum being beaten. Forward, Davai! The shout comes from his lieutenant, his face a grey mask of exhaustion and dirt. Vasily heaves himself up. His boots, the leather cracked and slick with mud, find purchase on the shell-torn road. He and his squad fan out, moving in the shadow of the T-34. They pass a splintered sign, Berliner Ring. They are no longer approaching the city, they are in it. But this isn't Berlin. This can't be it. They advance past the first row of suburban houses, or what's left of them. They aren't houses. They are skeletal, multi-story carcasses. There are no roofs, there are no walls, just jagged teeth of brick pointing at the smoky sky. The streets aren't streets. They are canyons of rubble, forcing the tanks to find new paths by simply ploughing over the remains of apartments and shops. There is no arrogant garrison marching out to meet them. The only resistance is desperate, fleeting. A Panzerfaust streaks from a cellar window, missing the T-34 and exploding against the ruin opposite. Vasily and his men spray the black opening with their submachine guns until the return fire stops. They move deeper, block by agonizing block. The scale of the destruction is wrong. It's absolute. It's silent. Between the roar of their own artillery and the frantic chatter of their guns, the city itself is dead. There are no birds, no trams, no voices. Vasily had marched through Stalingrad. He had seen the devastation of Warsaw. This was worse. This was the surface of the moon. He had expected a fortress. He had expected a shining, hateful prize. He looks at his squad mate, Dmitri, a young private from Kursk. Dmitri's face is slack with confusion. "Sergeant," Dmitri whispers, his voice hoarse. Where is everyone?" Vasily grips his PPS-41. He scans the towering, hollow-eyed buildings. He realizes the smell, the sour, dusty smell is, the smell of a city that has been bombed every night for 3 years straight. The pristine, untouchable Berlin of his imagination, the one that had fueled his hatred, does not exist. It has already been annihilated. The cellar dwellers. The advance grinds to a halt. It's no longer a march. It's a methodical, brutal excavation. They are in Neukölln, a working-class district. The apartment blocks Mietskasernanare 5 or 6 stories high, and every single one is a fortress. Not a fortress for the Wehrmacht, but for the desperate. The remaining resistance is sporadic, suicidal. Volkssturm old men in ill-fitting uniforms, armed with single-shot Panzerfaust fire from rooftops. Hitler-Jugend boys, some no older than Vasily's kid brother would have been, fire MG 42 seconds from piles of rubble until they are silenced by the T-34's cannon. The fighting is slow. Clear the street. Clear the building. Clear the cellar. Repeat. It's the cellars that break Vasily's mind. His squad stacks up on a heavy wooden door at the bottom of a dark, debris-choked stairwell. The air is thick, profoundly foul. It smells of unwashed bodies, stale urine, and disinfectant that has long since lost its fight. "Dmitri!" The door. Vasily orders, his voice flat. Dmitri, the private from Kursk, nods, his young face pale beneath the grime. He doesn't kick it. He shoves it with his shoulder. The lock is already broken. The door scrapes open on a single, groaning hinge, revealing a cavern of absolute darkness. Vasily clicks on his flashlight. The beam cuts into the black. It doesn't find soldiers. It finds eyes, dozens of them, reflecting the light like startled animals. The cellar is packed. There must be 200 people inside, crammed shoulder to shoulder in a space meant for laundry and coal storage. The beam sweeps across their faces. This is not the master race. These are ghosts. They are almost exclusively women, children, and old men. Their skin has a pale, greyish-yellow tint from living underground. Their eyes are wide with a specific, hollow terror that Vasily recognizes. It's the look of people who have been bombed for 1,000 nights, who have given up hope and are now just waiting for the end. A child, no more than 4, starts to cry a thin, dry wail. A woman with lank, greasy hair who might be 20 or 50, it's impossible to tell, pulls the child against her chest, her own body shaking so violently her teeth chatter. She is dressed in rags, her feet wrapped in cloth. Vasily's hand tightens on his PPS-41. He had come here for vengeance. He had come to find the arrogant wife of the SS officer who lived in splendor while his sister starved. He was prepared to fight, to kill, to drag them from their fine apartments. He was not prepared for this. He sees an old man, his spine bent into a permanent C, wearing a threadbare Volkssturm armband over a pre-war suit jacket. The man is holding a small, empty tin, just staring at it. He doesn't even look up at the heavily armed soldiers filling the doorway. "Water," a voice croaks in broken, desperate German. "Wasser, bit." Dmitri lowers his rifle slightly. "Sergeant," he mutters. "They are starving." Vasily feels a cold, twisting knot in his gut. It's not pity. It's not anger. It's a profound, disorienting anticlimax. This is the prize. This is the core of the Reich. This mass of broken, terrified, skeletal things. He remembers the propaganda posters he'd seen in captured German towns. The heroic, golden-haired farmer. The proud, blonde mother. He looks at the cowering, filthy, lice-ridden figures in the cellar. The disconnect is staggering. Check for soldiers, weapons. Then we move. Vasily commands, his voice harder than he intends. He cannot process this. He shoves the confusion down and replaces it with the familiar numbness of the mission. They find no weapons, Just a few more old men in uniforms they can barely stand in. They leave them. The cellar dwellers are not a threat. They are not even, in any meaningful sense, the enemy. They are just the leftover. As they emerge back into the grey, smoky daylight, they see them, the ones who aren't hiding, the Trümmerfrauen, the rubble women. They are everywhere, appearing as if from the earth itself. Lines of women, singly or in small groups, carrying buckets, pulling dilapidated baby carriages or pushing small wooden carts. Their faces are black with soot, their hair covered in scarves. They ignore the raging battle. They ignore the Soviet tanks lumbering past. They walk with a numb, shuffling determination, their eyes fixed on the ground. Vasily watches a group of 3. They are at a communal water pump, a cast-iron pipe jutting from a mountain of bricks. They are taking turns, patiently, filling their buckets with a thin stream of brown, sludgy water. A shell explodes a block away, raining shrapnel and dust over them. They don't flinch. They don't even look up. They just hunch their shoulders, wait for the debris to stop falling, and continue filling their buckets. This, Vasily realizes, is the pristine Berlin he expected. This is the arrogant citizenry. A city of women, living in holes in the ground, risking death for a bucket of polluted water, while their untouchable city has been hammered into gravel, first from the air, and now from the ground. The spoils of annihilation. The advance continues. It's no longer a battle for Berlin, it's a battle through it. The city has become a grotesque obstacle course, a vertical landscape of 10-story ruins. Vasily's 8th Guards army pushes north, toward the Tiergarten, toward the symbolic heart. The chatter on the radios is constant. The first Belarusian front is clearing the north. The first Ukrainian front is swinging up from the south. The entire, massive organism of the Red Army is contracting around this one dead point on the map. With every block, the soldiers' confusion deepens, and it curdles into something else. Their rage, meticulously stoked for 4 years, has nowhere to go. They had been told they were destroying the den of the beast, but the beast is already dead. The British and American bombers had gotten here first. As they pass a wrecked U-Bahn station, its tiled entrance gaping like a tomb, Vasily's T-34 rumbles past a line of women. These aren't the Trümmerfrauen with buckets. These women are just standing there, waiting. They look like they're waiting for a tram, Dmitri mutters, his voice edged with disbelief. They are gaunt, their faces powdered with white plaster dust. They wear their best coats, though the coats are torn and stained. As the tank passes, they don't look at it with fear. They look at it with a desperate, appraising blankness. Vasily sees a grizzled tank rider from another squadder man with a face like cured leather hop down from his T-34. He has a loaf of dark army bread in one hand. He approaches one of the women, a blonde who can't be more than 20. He holds out the bread. The woman stares at the loaf. Vasily watches her hands, red and raw, clench and unclench. She looks at the soldier's grinning, grime-caked face. Then she looks at the bread again. Slowly, she nods. The soldier jerks his head toward a ruined doorway. She follows. Vasily feels a surge of profound disgust. It's not just at the soldier, it's at the bread. It's at the entire degraded world they've inherited. This isn't conquest. This is scavenging. Keep moving. He barks at his own men, pushing them forward. Eyes on the windows. They turn a corner onto what was once a grand boulevard. This was the untouchable Berlin. This was the home of the party elite, the industrialists, the SS generals. And it is the most annihilated place Vasily has ever seen. The bombs here were bigger, the destruction more absolute. The wide street is impassable, choked with the facades of entire banks, opera houses, and luxury apartments that have collapsed outward. The T-34 has to weave a path over the remains of ornate balconies and smashed marble statues. They enter one of these buildings, looking for a firing position. It was clearly the home of someone powerful. A grand piano lies on its side, its keys scattered like broken teeth. A crystal chandelier, impossibly large, has fallen from the ceiling and shattered into a million pieces, glittering in the grey light. Vasily's boot crunches on a porcelain teacup, its delicate painted flowers still visible. In a back room, they find an old woman, dead. She is sitting in a high-backed velvet armchair, dressed in a black silk gown, a string of pearls around her skeletal neck. She has been dead for days. She is staring at a portrait on the wall, a stern-looking man in a high collar. They left her, Dmitri whispers, crossing himself an old habit he'd thought he'd lost. They were all left, Vasily says. He feels nothing. No pity, no satisfaction. Just an enormous, hollow emptiness. This is the enemy. A dead old woman in a ruined palace, waiting for a kingdom that had already burned down around her. The propaganda was a lie. Not the part about German cruelty. Vasily knew that was real. He had seen the graves in his own village. But the part about their strength, their untouchable arrogance, it was a phantom. They had marched all this way to kill a ghost. The men are growing restless. The cellars they clear now are full of schnapps and wine. The officers, weary themselves, are losing control. The fighting is too sporadic. There are hours of crushing, terrifying silence, punctuated by a brief, insane skirmish with a handful of SS teenagers. And then, more silence, more cellars, more women. The army, denied its climactic, heroic battle against a worthy foe, begins to turn on the city itself. The violence becomes personal, chaotic. Vasily struggles to keep his own squad in line. They are drunk on captured alcohol, drunk on exhaustion, and drunk on this overwhelming, disorienting anticlimax. "Sergeant," Dmitri asks him, as they rest for a moment against a pile of rubble, the air thick with the smoke of a burning ministry building. "When we win, what does this mean? We beat this?" He gestures to the endless grey expanse of ruin, to the hollow-eyed women shuffling past with their carts. Vasily doesn't have an answer. He checks the drum magazine on his PP 41. It's full. He looks north, toward the black plume of smoke that he knows, instinctively, must be the government quarter. "It means we are not finished," Vasily says, his voice a low growl. "The people are broken. But the symbol is not. We are going to the Reichstag. We are going to the Chancellery. We are going to pull their black flag down ourselves." That is what it means. He needs an enemy. If it's not the untouchable citizens, it will have to be the buildings themselves. The citadel of the dead. April 29th, 1945, 11 hours. The Königsplatz. The world has shrunk to a single, blasted square of mud and stone. The vast, quiet ocean of ruins they had navigated is gone. The city of women and cellar dwellers has vanished behind them. Vasily and his squad are now in the Mitte district, the government quarter, and the atmosphere has changed. The air doesn't just smell like cold ash. It's hot, thick with the acrid bite of fresh gunfire, diesel fumes, and the sulphurous stench of Nebelwerfer rockets. This is no longer a scavenger hunt. This is an exorcism. Before them looms the Reichstag. It is the untouchable symbol. It's not the pristine, neoclassical marvel of the postcards. It is a blackened, pockmarked, violated fortress. The great dome is a skeleton of twisted steel. The windows are not glass, but dark, bricked-up loopholes spitting bright orange fire. The statues of Teutonic heroes on its roofline have been decapitated by shellfire, and it is defended, fiercely. This is the resistance Vasily had expected to find at the city gates. The defenders here are not the broken old men of the Volkssturm. These are the last bitter dregs of the Reich. Waffen-SS units, foreign volunteers from the Charlemagne and Nordland divisions, and Kriegsmarine sailors. These men have nowhere to run. They know they will be shown no mercy, and they intend to show none in return. They are fighting for a city that no longer exists, for a Führer who is already a ghost, screaming defiance from a hole in the ground. "Is-2, left flank, that 88. Vasily screams, his throat raw. A heavy IS-2 tank, its 122mm cannon, a blunt instrument of pure destruction, fires point blank. The shell hits a concealed 88mm anti-aircraft gun hidden behind a mound of marble statues. The explosion is deafening, throwing a geyser of earth and white stone fragments into the air. For the Red Army, this is the final, symbolic act. The artillerymen of the 150th Rifle Division have dragged their 152mm howitzers down the boulevards. They are firing over open sights directly into the building's facade, blasting new doorways with every shot. "This is it, boys," the lieutenant yells, his face a mask of adrenaline and black soot. "This is the den. We kill the beast here." Vasily feels a strange, cold clarity. The profound, disorienting anticlimax of the past few days is gone, burned away by the heat of this final, insane battle. The ruined city, the starving women, the hollow-eyed children that was one truth. This is another. The untouchable, Berlin, did exist. It wasn't a city of arrogant civilians. It was an idea, and this building is its skull. "First squad, on me. We go for the main entrance. Davai." Vasily heaves himself out of the crater. He and Dmitri sprint across the open, churned mud of the Königsplatz. The air is a solid wall of noise and flying metal. Bullets from an MG-42, firing from the building's portico, rip the ground at their feet, kicking up dust devils of mud. A man to Vasily's left, a new replacement from Kiev, grunts, spins, and falls face first, his helmet ringing as it hits the ground. No time. Don't look. Vasily feels the thump, thump, thump of his own heart against his ribs. He is no longer thinking of his burned village. He is not thinking of vengeance. He is thinking only of the 30 meters of open ground between him and the stone steps. He slides into the cover of a massive, overturned bronze horse. Dmitri lands beside him, panting, his knuckles white on his rifle. They are not human, Sergeant." Dmitri gasps, staring at the dark windows. "They are already dead, Dmitri," Vasily says, pulling a grenade from his belt. "They just don't know it." He looks at the massive, shell-blasted columns. He sees the graffiti his comrades have already scrawled on the lower stones. "For Stalingrad. For Leningrad. From Smolensk to Berlin. From Smolensk." Vasily pulls the pin. "Covering fire," he roars. He sprints the last 10 meters, throws himself flat on the stone steps, and hurls the RGD-33 grenade through a shattered, sandbagged archway. The explosion inside is muffled, followed by screams. Vasily gets to his feet, the PP-41 at his hip. He steps out of the grey, smoky daylight and into the cavernous, stinking darkness of the Reichstag. Inside, it is chaos. The grand halls are filled with smoke, burning furniture, and the frantic, echoing chatter of submachine guns. The SS defenders, their black uniforms filthy, their faces gaunt, fight from behind barricades of desks, statues, and velvet curtains. It is a close, brutal, room-to-room fight. This is the battle Vasily had marched 1,418 days for. Not against a pristine city, but against a fanatic remnant, barricaded inside their own tomb. The untouchable citizens were a lie, but this fortress, this symbol, was all too real. The cauldron of symbols. The Reichstag is a vertical battlefield, a labyrinth of smoke, fire, and echoing thunder. The grand entrance hall, its marble floors carpeted in brass casings and shattered statues, is a butcher's shop. Vasily's PPS-41 is hot in his hands. He no longer aims, he points and sprays, stitching a line of 7.62mm holes across a barricade of overturned mahogany desks. The air is unbreathable thick, gritty fog of pulverized plaster, cordite, and the gagging stench of a burning tapestry. "Grenade! Granata!" Dmitri screams. Vasily doesn't hesitate. He dives behind a massive, overturned bronze urn, pulling his head into his shoulders. A German steel hand granate, potato masher, clatters on the mosaic floor. The explosion is a flat, concussive crump that seems to suck the air from his lungs. A man in his squad, the one from Kiev, screams a high, thin sound that is cut short. "Forward! Davai! Do not let them reload!" The lieutenant, Koniev, bellows, his face a black mask. They are no longer fighting for Berlin. They are fighting for this one, symbolic house. And the defenders are a mix of Waffen-SS fanatics, French volunteers, and Kriegsmarine sailor sare, not the starving ghosts from the cellars. These men are well armed, their eyes wide with a nihilistic fury. They fight, fall back, and counter-attack with the desperate energy of men who know they are already dead. For Vasily, this is a terrible, final relief. This is an enemy he can understand. He doesn't have to process the cognitive dissonance of the Trümmerfrauen. He doesn't have to wrestle with the anti-climax of the ruined city. He just has to kill the man in the black uniform in front of him. The stairs! We need the roof! Find the stairs! Konev roars. They find it. A sweeping, grandiose marble staircase, its ornate banisters blown to smithereens. This is the meat grinder. The SS hold the landing above, rolling grenades down the steps, firing Panzerfausts directly down the stairwell. The rockets streak past, the backblast shattering what little glass remains, the overpressure ringing Vasily's ears. The T-34 seconds outside fire again. The entire building shudders, and a section of the ceiling, a massive painted mural of German mythology, collapses onto the stairs, crushing friend and foe alike in a cloud of 100-year-old dust. This way, through the offices. They abandon the main stairs and begin a brutal, room-to-room clear. They kick in a heavy oak door marked Sitzungssaale meeting hall. It is not a fortress, it is a field hospital. The stench of gangrene, sweat, and unsterilized blood hits them like a physical wall. Dozens of men in filthy, blood-soaked uniforms lie on the floor, on long conference tables, on piles of velvet curtains. A single, haggard surgeon, an old man in a bloody smock, is trying to amputate a Waffen-SS soldier's leg with a simple hacksaw. The soldier is awake. He makes no sound. A nurse, a woman in her 40s with hair matted to her skull and eyes as hollow as the cellar dwellers, stands up. She holds her empty, bloody hands up. "There is no more morphine," she says in precise, clear German, her voice absolutely dead. "There is no more water. They are all dying. Can you not just wait?" Dmitri lowers his PPS-41. His young, grimy face is a mask of confusion. These are the men who had been trying to kill them, the ideological core of the beast. But here, in this stinking room, they are just ruined meat, the master race reduced to this. Vasily feels that cold, disorienting knot twist in his stomach again. The untouchable Reich, even in its final citadel, was a lie. It wasn't a glorious, defiant twilight of the gods. It was this, a pathetic, filthy, infected, and dying mass. "We are not here for them," Vasily snarls, grabbing Dmitri by the shirt and pulling him back into the corridor. He cannot let this stop him. Not now. Leave them. We go up. They find a narrow, cast-iron spiral staircase at the end of the hall, likely for servants. It's dark, and it goes straight up. "This is it," Konev pants. "To the roof." They climb, one by one, their boots ringing on the metal steps. They can hear the battle raging above them, now the constant, heavy thud, thud, thud of a Soviet anti-aircraft gun firing at the building, and the frantic rattle of an MG-42 firing from it. Vasily reaches the top, a heavy iron trapdoor. He shoves it with his shoulder. It grates open on rusted hinges. He heaves himself up and out, rolling onto a surface of hot lead flashing and shattered sandstone. The open sky is a shock. It's not blue. It's a solid, rolling ceiling of orange-black smoke. He is on the roof of the Reichstag. Vasily gets to his knees, his rifle ready, and he looks out. He freezes. From here, he can see everything. It's not just the Königsplatz or the Tiergarten. It is all of Berlin, laid out before him, stretching to the horizon in every direction. And it is gone. It is not a city. It is a flat, brown and grey sea of ruins. A million chimneys with no houses. A vast, silent ocean of pulverized stone, punctuated only by the black plumes of smoke from his own army's advance. The city of women he had walked through was not an isolated district. It was the entirety of the enemy capital. The scale of the bombing, which he had only glimpsed from the street, is now laid bare. It is total. It is the end of the world. This, Vasily thinks, his mind reeling. This is the untouchable city. A victory of ash. Vasily stands on the roof of the Reichstag, and for the first time in 4 years, the sound of the front line is below him. Up here, A new sound dominates. A vast, hollow wind whistling through the skeletal steel dome and across the endless, jagged teeth of the dead city. He is on his knees, his PP-41 held loosely in one hand. The view, it is an ocean of death. The Königsplatz below is a pockmarked morass. The Tiergarten, once the lush, green heart of the city, is a field of blackened, splintered tree trunks and shell craters, as if a forest fire and an artillery barrage had a child. And beyond it, stretching to the smoke-blackened horizon in every direction, is the city he had marched 2,000 kilometers to find. It is a phantom, a geographical expression. There are no buildings, there are no avenues, there is only a flat, grey-brown expanse of pulverized brick and stone, a uniform sea of ruin that makes the destruction of Stalingrad look like a localized skirmish. He finally understands. The untouchable citizens, they were never untouched. The pristine capital, it never existed. He had come here to avenge his burned home, to show the arrogant masters of the Reich what real war looked like. But the British and the Americans, with their endless nights of 4,000-pound blockbusters, had already made the point. They had done it from 30,000 feet, with cold, industrial, impersonal efficiency. They had shattered the idea of Berlin long before the Red Army ever crossed the Oder. A bullet zings off the sandstone parapet near his head, snapping him from his reverie. "Sniper! By the dome! Suka!" The roof is not yet clear. The last, feral defenders are still here, fighting for this one last patch of scorched stone. "Dmitri! Vasily! Left!" Lieutenant Koniev roars. The fight that follows is not a battle. It's a pathetic, vicious brawl. It's a handful of exhausted, soot-blackened Red Army soldiers against a few SS men who look more like rabid animals, their faces gaunt, their eyes burned out with a fanaticism that has outlived their cause. Vasily doesn't even aim. He rises to one knee and fires his submachine gun from the hip, emptying the drum into the shadows of a collapsed statue. The fight is over in 30 seconds. It ends with a single SS officer, his black uniform torn, lunging with a combat knife, only to be cut down by 3 men firing at once. Then, silence. The only sound is the wind, the distant rumble of artillery, and the crackle of the burning city. "It's over," Dmitri pants, his hands shaking. "It's done." Lieutenant Koniev stumbles over to the twisted, shrapnel-shorn stump of what was once the main flagpole. He unslings a simple rifle. From his tunic, another Soldiera young artilleryman, Vasily, doesn't even know pulls a bundled piece of red cloth. It's not a grand banner. It's a simple, crimson tablecloth, probably taken from a liberated German apartment, with a hammer and sickle painted on it in stark white. "Get it up," Koniev says, his voice raw. "Get it on that statue. The horse. Now." They scramble over the rubble. Vasily finds himself helping, pushing the young artilleryman, Mikhail Yegorov, up the base of a massive bronze equestrian statue Germania, or some long-dead Kaiser. The statue is headless, its patina scarred by gunfire. The soldier, Yegorov, clambers up the horse's flank. He and another, Meliton Kantaria, tie the red cloth to the bronze leg. And then, it is done. The red banner unfurls, snapping violently in the hot, smoky wind. It's a single, vivid splash of colour in a world that has been reduced to grey, black, and brown. From the Königsplatz below, a sound erupts, a ragged, guttural roar that is half cheer, half scream. Thousands of Soviet soldiers, seeing the flag, are firing their weapons into the air. A cascade of red, green, and white flares streaks into the smoke, their light illuminating the vast, dead city. This is it, the end of 1,418 days. Vasily stands, his legs aching. He looks at the flag, then he looks past it, at the apocalyptic panorama of Berlin. He thinks of the propaganda, the den of the fascist beast, the pristine, arrogant, untouchable city. He thinks of his burning hatred, the fuel that had carried him from the gates of Smolensk. And he feels nothing, just a vast, hollow, profound emptiness. The victory is real, but the enemy he had come to defeat was a ghost. The untouchable citizens were the Trümmerfrauen he'd seen risking their lives for a bucket of foul water. They were the starving, skeletal figures cowering in the cellars. They were the hollow-eyed women trading their last shred of dignity for a loaf of army bread. They were the dead old woman in her velvet chair, waiting for a kingdom that had already choked on its own hubris. His home in Smolensk was in ruins, and now the capital of his enemy was also in ruins. The great, terrible war hadn't ended with a glorious victory of good over evil. It had ended with the two halves of the world simply grinding each other down into a uniform, matching pile of ash. Dmitri stands beside him, tears streaming down his face, cutting clean trails through the mask of soot and grime. "We did it, Sergeant," Dmitri whispers, his voice breaking. "For the motherland, we did it." Vasily Petrenko nods slowly. He pulls the worn, oilcloth-wrapped photograph from his tunic. He looks at the faded, smiling faces of his wife and child, lost so long ago. "Yes," Vasily says, his voice a dry rasp. "We did it." He looks back at the red flag, a defiant symbol of life and vengeance, flapping over a literal necropolis, a city of the dead. He has won. He is the conqueror of a graveyard.